Hi everyone, welcome to the Practice Within podcast. I am Amanda L., your host, and today we're talking all about homeopathy. So, I am in homeopathy school currently. I will be in for the next year and a half, and then I will officially be a homeopath, so I have a long way to go, but I just want to give a little recap really quickly of how I landed here. Last year at this time, if you would have asked me, I don't know, pretty much anything about homeopathy, I wouldn't have known pretty much anything. And it was a very rapid progression from my interest being piqued because I knew about homeopathy. I've known about it for quite a while, but I didn't understand it. I never felt called to it. I never really dove into it. I took some remedies prescribed by some practitioners in the past, but it was never something that I just pursued in any way, which is really weird because I've pursued a lot of different stuff in the alternative health world. Homeopathy was not one of those things until this year. Earlier this year, I got myself a homeopath. I got Lily a homeopath after listening to a podcast, which sounds really crazy, but that was kind of the thing that did it. Mitch and I listened to this podcast while we were traveling, and it just completely blew me away. And I was like, I need to be involved with this. I'd never heard anybody really talk about homeopathy in the way that her name is Melissa Kushp. I'm not sure how, Kupsch, I think is her last, how you spell it. But she has Remedy Academy, RMDY Academy, which is a homeopathy school. It is not the one I'm going to. I wanted to start sooner. I wanted to start in 2025. Her enrollment wasn't until 2026. So I landed somewhere else, which is exactly where I'm meant to be. But found homeopathy through her, and that began my obsession. And I knew very quickly, I was like, I need this. I need to do this because I became a nutritional therapy practitioner in 2021, and I've always felt like there's something missing there for me. The NTA, the Nutritional Therapy Association, the school that you go to become a nutritional therapy practitioner, is extremely wonderful. It's a foundational program. It was a great foundational program, and I really don't really have a bad thing to say about it. But it very much focuses on the physical and the foundational health of the physical body, which is great, and so many of us need it, and I gained so much from that program. But I felt like there was something missing, and I didn't know what that thing was. I explored German New Medicine. I was considering pursuing different functional testing certifications and schooling that I could do. And none of it really felt right to me until homeopathy came along. And I was like, this is it. This is the missing piece. This is exactly what I need. So I researched schools. Like I said, I looked into Remedy. Remedy was not accepting students until 2026. I didn't want to wait an entire year and a half at that point to go to school. I wanted to start sooner, so I found a different one to go to, and I really enjoy it. And so with that, I began in September, and I guess something that was really confirming for me, and it always works out like this, when you are aligned and you are following that inner guidance, this is always how it works out. So I signed up for homeopathy school. 1 week later, I got fired from my job. And I kind of anticipated the firing happening, but I was there for 5 years, and I was expecting it, but also surprised when it happened at the same time. But it was just very confirming to me of okay, I am done with that path. I am done with that previous chapter of my life. And now I'm stepping into this new one. Now I'm going to school to be a homeopath. Now I'm like going all in on being a nutritional therapy practitioner until I can take on homeopathic clients as well. Now I'm writing my book. Now I restarted this podcast. I am like doing all of the things again, or for the first time. But like, it was just a very confirming, like, you're going in the right direction. And I think a lot of times we see those type of things as bad things that happen to us, but I see them as things that happen for us, because that happened for me, because I was not leaving that job, even though I knew long before I got fired that chapter needed to be closed. That book needed to be done. I knew that, but taking that leap was extremely terrifying for me, to the point where I wasn't doing it. And so the universe did it for me. And I had that happen with the mold. I was in a relationship for 6 years. And I have journal entries where I'm talking about how that relationship was no longer aligned for me. Like a couple of years before I broke up with him, I was journaling about it. And I didn't realize that too consciously until after we broke up and I was reflecting. Just because admitting those things to yourself is a whole, like, then you have to deal with it, you know? And so what happened was I lived in the mold and I got really sick. He didn't believe that it was making me sick. And I was like, well, there's nowhere for us to go from here. Like, if we aren't living together, like, it's over. And if you're not believing me, it's over. So that was another example or proving of how the universe will guide you and will force you essentially into these situations where you are forced to get back on your aligned path, essentially. And that's what happened. Like, I met Mitch, we got married, the whole thing, because I wasn't listening, and I have a tendency to not listen to that inner guidance when it's like a big scary thing to me, even though I know it. And I knew it in both of those circumstances. I've known it in previous ones. I used to just be way better at jumping and listening and being led instead of trying to force and control. Anyways, so that's kind of how I came into homeopathy. That was really confirming for me. I've been in school since September. It is now December, and it has been very interesting. It's extremely fascinating, and I'm really grateful to be doing it. And I just, I've learned so much already, but there's like so much to learn. And I know I'm probably never going to scratch the surface of being like on the level that I want to be, just because there's so much depth. There are over 8,000 homeopathic remedies that we can work with. Most of the time, homeopaths only work with like a core set for the most part. But that's just kind of like showing you the expansiveness of the medicine and what is possible with so many remedies, so many different variations of prescribing and everything. Anyways, I'm getting into the weeds. Let's reel it back in and let's dive in. So if you're new here, and if you're not, just gentle reminder that I am just basically sharing my Substack posts in video and audio form. So if you're listening to this, you can watch on YouTube. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can also listen on podcasting, or you can read this on Substack. The benefit to the video or the audio is that I add in a little bit of extra stuff, essentially. So all three formats are available, and they are pretty much the same, but have slight variations in regards to, seeing me or seeing and hearing me, or just reading it and just getting the original content, which is the Substack post. So I have the Substack post here. I'm going to be sparking my my guidance from that space, and with that, let's get right to it. So, well, I could sum up the question, what is homeopathy, in like 2 seconds, just a quick sentence. That's not my style. If it was, I would have an Instagram reel and I would move on. I would put it out and I would move on. But I'm not making Instagram reels typically. I am sharing long form content, podcast, Substack, YouTube. That's my vibe. And so today we're diving into the nitty gritty of what homeopathy is and kind of how it came to be, especially in the US, and what kind of happened with homeopathy in the US, because that's where I live. And I find this fascinating because most of the time now, when you talk to people and you bring up homeopathy, people have no idea what you're talking about. They don't understand what it is. They don't, quote unquote, believe in energy or whatever, even though, like, have you ever heard of Wi-Fi? Like, it's, I don't know. Like, have you ever walked into a room and just felt something was a little off, or like you felt drawn to a person? Like, the energetic aspect of things, the energetic world and knowledge has completely become, I don't know, stereotyped into like a new agey thing. And I really think that that's part of my mission, is to bring it back to the mainstream in a way that's not weird and cringy and like we sit around in a prairie dress and sing Kumbaya every day with our 15 children type of thing. No hate to any of that, but like when you think of homeopathy, typically there's a stereotype of like the type of person that is providing those services. And I really just want to bring it to like the normal people. So, the beginning. Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, he was a German medical doctor. He was working to translate a book, and it's called Cullen's Materia Medica. And Samuel Hahnemann was basically a genius. He knew, I can't remember how many languages, but multiple languages. And so he didn't like the barbaric practices of medicine that were going on back in the late 1700s. And so he started to go into the more educational aspect of things. So he was translating Cullen's Materia Medica, which is a textbook for doctors that described all of the plants that they were using in medicine back in that time, which was around like 1790. He came across something that's called cinchona bark, or China officinalis, and that was the beginning of things. That was the officially the first homeopathic remedy. So cinchona bark was used to treat malaria traditionally back in that time. Dr. Hahnemann was not sick with malaria, but as he was translating this textbook, he was looking to kind of expand upon the description. And so he started to experiment with cinchona bark on himself. He was a healthy guy. He had no symptoms. He didn't have malaria. There was nothing like physically going on with him at this time. And after a short period of time of taking the cinchona bark, he started to express malaria symptoms. And so he took notice of this, of course, and he began to play around with that more, experiment with that a little more. And from there, the law of similars was created. The law of similars simply means that like cures like. So homeo is the same, and pathos is suffering. Another combination of like curing like, same suffering. So from there, Dr. Hahnemann began putting this into practice by giving very small doses of substances to people who were sick. He found that the patient would get better, but there were still some aggravations occurring. And so what he did was he began to dilute the dose more and more and more until it came to the point where there is no material substance in the dose. It was just an energetic resonance of the substance. That is how homeopathy was born. So it started with this very physical cinchona bark, which he then recognized was able to, in a small dose, be given to people with malaria to heal their symptoms. And he just began to create that dose into something smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until it became energetic. There are still to this day some remedies that do have very tiny amounts of material dose in them, but if you get to a 30C, 200C, 1M, anything higher than that, then there is no material dose. It is all energetic resonance of that substance, plant, mineral, animal, something else, whatever it may be. So, the goal of homeopathy is to find the simillimum. And the simillimum is the remedy that matches the exact symptoms of the client to strengthen the vital force and then attain healing. So we're always looking for that simillimum, that healing remedy. So the vital force, that is simply our life force. In Chinese medicine, they call it the qi, the energy of the body, essentially. And the stronger it is, the more vibrant we are, the better we feel. The vital force calls in healing because at the end of the day, the body has the ability to heal itself. So the remedy isn't doing the healing, but the remedy is assisting the body in healing itself, essentially. And something that I really love personally about homeopathy is the fact that the whole person is taken into consideration. So yes, of course, the homeopath cares if you have an IBS diagnosis, but they also care about your emotions, thoughts, experiences from the last week, all the way back to when you were 5 years old and you had something really scary happen. And if you want to take it even further, they even care about your family and your ancestors and things like that. It all is taken into account. It's an all-encompassing approach. And so there's this concept. It's called the totality of a person, and it dates back all the way to the 1800s, and it's pretty self-explanatory. The mind, the body, the spirit, and the soul of a person equals the total person. The total person. The total person. And a lot of times in the modern day, we only focus on one aspect. So we have mental health, or a lot of people are focusing on their physical health. For good reason, because you're seeing and experiencing a manifestation of physical symptoms. So it makes sense to focus on the physical. But at the same time, there could be other components coming into play that are expressing in the physical body. So something from one of the other aspects of a person could be just expressing in the physical state. And when you work with all of the aspects, the totality of the person, you can support shifts that other practices of medicine can't touch. And while I'm a proponent for all medicinal practices, if you want to take some supplements, if you have a medication that you're taking and you feel like you need to take that and your doctor feels like you need to take that, you do you. There's a time and place for everything, I believe. Do I think that we have over-consumed a lot of different things, medicine and supplements? Yes, I personally believe that, but there's a time and place for it all. So anyways, homeopaths work with the totality of the person, the whole person. We care about all of you. And to get into the middle of things, the middle of homeopathy, we are entering into the era of Dr. Constantine Hering. So Dr. Constantine Hering studied medicine at the same university that Dr. Hahnemann studied medicine, although he was doing so many years later. I believe Hahnemann was about 45 when Constantine Hering was studying. And so Hering was tasked with writing a book that disproved homeopathy. So he was up for the task, of course. He began, and he found that he could not disprove it. There was evidence all around, and it was astounding. And throughout the experience, combined with the situation that he was doing a dissection of a dead body, essentially, and he had a cut in his finger and it got infected, and he thought that he would have to amputate his finger. He was getting ready for that amputation, and he took arsenicum album, which is a homeopathic remedy, and it saved his finger. And he knew, after everything that he was going through and had gone through, that he needed to seek out Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, and they became friends. So eventually he moved to the United States, and he became the first president of the American Institute of Homeopathy in 1844. It was the first national medical organization in the US. The first one. Homeopathic organization was the first medical organization in the United States. Repeating because it just feels like it needs to be repeated. It wasn't until a few years later that the allopathic physicians founded the American Medical Association. And then in 1848, Hering founded the Homeopathic Medical College of Pennsylvania. 11 other homeopathic medical colleges existed in the United States at that time. Homeopathy was exploding by 1900. There were 22 homeopathic colleges, 100 homeopathic hospitals, and over 1,000 homeopathic pharmacies in the United States. That blows my mind. Just thinking about the sheer size and accessibility of homeopathy in the early 1900s is astounding. Considering the fact that you go to Whole Foods today and a couple years ago, you used to be able to buy the remedies, like the little boron remedies. And then they took those out, and now you can get like the boxes of like the flu and the cold remedies and stuff. They're like combination remedies. But the accessibility of homeopathy in the early 1900s compared to 2025 in a physical location it's just night and day, essentially. So that's really crazy to me, and I love to kind of share that fact out just because it just almost seems unbelievable, even though it is definitely 100% true. And believe it or not, nearly 20% of all doctors at that time were practicing homeopaths. At this point in time, if you bring up homeopathy to your regular doctors, like most of them aren't even going to know what it is, or they're just going to say that like that's a fake thing and not understand what they're calling a fake thing. And the heyday of homeopathy, unfortunately, started to quickly take a turn for the worst as the AMA, the American Medical Association, and pharmaceutical companies began to target homeopathy in any way that they could. In 1910, the Carnegie Foundation shared the Flexner Report, which I have linked in my Substack post. So you can go over there and click it if you would like to read all about that. But it basically bolsters allopathic medicine and speaks of homeopathy with great disdain. Shortly after the Flexner Report came out, the Rockefeller Foundation provided excessive amounts of money to schools in support of teaching the Flexner Report recommendations, which is super ironic because John D. Rockefeller was a huge supporter of homeopathy. He had homeopaths on staff that treated him and his family up to the point of his death, I believe. And so as the downfall of homeopathy was occurring, he was still using it as he was involved with pushing out this allopathic medicine model, which is really another very interesting and perplexing thing to me. But if you think about the pharmaceutical industry, there are ample amounts of money to be made in that industry. And if you think about homeopathic remedies, there's not so much money involved there, especially A homeopath will sit with you for like an hour and a half for your initial intake and an hour for your follow-up appointments, give or take. And a traditional medical doctor will sit with you for 10 or 15 minutes. They probably won't even sit. No hate, because, the insurance companies, there's no hate against medical doctors. Like I said, they're there for a time and place, and they're necessary. But I think we have overcorrected into this space where they are deemed with the task of doing and healing things that they are not capable of supporting fully. That's a whole other topic. We're not going to get into the weeds. We're going to focus on homeopathy. So coming back to homeopathy and John D. Rockefeller and the money aspect of things, which I believe played a huge role, because, it makes sense. It just makes sense. Unfortunately, we hate to say it, we hate to see it, but that's what happens. And so the decline of homeopathy occurred, and it occurred very rapidly. And the last fully homeopathic medical school closed in the US in 1920. While there were electives still available at other schools into the 1940s, by the time the 1950s rolled around, homeopathy was no longer taught. And so that was kind of the end of things. And I really wish, this is like just a random side note, I really wish that I had some great grandparents that I could kind of press into and be like, hey, what's this thing? Are you familiar with this? Because I don't know, I just would be really interested to see what it was like during that time. But unfortunately, I don't have anybody in my life currently still living, which you probably don't either. They would be probably close to 120 years old at this point. But it's just something that I've really a deep interest in, and just wish I would have the time to ask some questions about people who were living through that time period. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And so here we are in present day, and we are going to fast forward into present day. And thankfully now homeopathy is making a comeback. I am slightly scared to put this on YouTube because I'm not sure how YouTube will like this video, but we're going to try it out anyways. But homeopathy is making a comeback in the alternative health world. Alternative health and wellness is like such an industry now. And like interest in being a healthy person and having these trendy wellness products and whatnot is on the rise. And so the acceptance and the understanding and the interest in homeopathy is also on the rise as well, which is really great, really cool. And there is so much to share in the world of homeopathy. And if it does seem a little out there for you still, because it is energetic medicine, but you're still a little curious, then I really encourage you to start out with learning some acute information. So they have homeopathic acute kits that you can buy, and they have little booklets to guide you along, to educate you on what to do with the remedies. And anybody can use homeopathic remedies to dose for acute. So acutes are something that lasts 3 weeks or less. So it's like a cold. You burn your finger, you cut your hand, things like that. So like if you burn your finger when you're baking cookies, let's say it's December right now, maybe you're making some Christmas cookies, pull them out of the oven and you forget to use your hot or your pot holder, you burn your finger. You can use Cantharis at a 30C. I have this all listed in my Substack too. You can use Cantharis at a 30C to help with the burn. Maybe you have a scared dog from a thunderstorm or a gunshot like Lily has experienced recently. It's hunting season here. You can give whoever's in a shock or a fear aconite 30 or 200C. Maybe you've overindulged at a party recently, alcohol, some rich and heavy food, Nux vomica, 30 or 200C. Tick bite, Ticks aren't out in Pennsylvania currently. It's wintertime. We see them in the spring and the fall usually, not so much in the summer and the winter. But for a tick bite, you can take Ledum, 30 or 200 C. If you have a high fever circumstance, you're just really red, you're really hot, Belladonna, 30 or 200 C. And everybody can learn to support themselves for these acute circumstances with homeopathy. And I will be sharing loads more about this as we continue on this journey of time. But when it comes to complex situations, chronic things, I definitely do recommend working with somebody. And I will be able to take clients in April 2026. If you're looking for somebody before that, there are a lot of great homeopaths out there. But if you do have a chronic or a complex situation, I really don't recommend dosing yourself for those things. Because homeopathy is not something to fear, but it is something to respect. A lot of people don't take energy seriously. They don't believe in it somehow. And I like to look at homeopathy like I would look at any other supplement or medication. If you're taking it for the right thing at the right time, it's going to be supportive. But if you're taking too much of something or the wrong thing for a long period of time, you're going to see some negative side effects. And I think treating homeopathy with the same respect as these medicines and supplements that we do that with is a really great way to honor the medicine and to educate yourself in the proper way of how to be taking it and what to be taking and when. Because I also believe that we overconsume supplements and medication and everything. Like I said, it's really easy to slip into that with homeopathy, and you find yourself like taking some homeopathy for every little thing. And a lot of the time you can just let your body be and stop reaching and instead just listen. And with just listening and pausing and understanding, we can get a lot further a lot of the time. But I think in general, it's a really great thing to include in your household, to introduce into your household, and to start to learn about, just to start to understand from an open-minded perspective. Because there's a lot of stigma out there around homeopathy. There's a lot of hate. There's a lot of judgment. But the surge of it back in the 18 and 1900s, 17 to 1900s, let's say, and the efficacy of it and just different stories that you hear, and I have some of my own, especially with Lily. Like, I think that experience and education are two of the most powerful things that we can like enter or welcome into our lives. And the more that we experience and the more that we educate ourselves, the more we can open our perspectives, the more we can learn, and the more that we can recognize that we don't know as much as we thought we knew. And when you get to that space, it's like the whole world like opens up and you're able to see things differently, which then helps you to do things differently, which is what the practice within is all about. Doing things differently. And so maybe you try homeopathy and you're like, this sucks. And, you move on and you do whatever you want to do. But maybe you try it and you open yourself into this whole new world of potential and possibility and resources that you didn't even know were possible, that you didn't even know existed, and that you didn't even understand until you took the time to approach it with a different perspective. And so if I can welcome in anything for you during this episode, it's just the encouragement of doing things differently, of opening yourself up to the potential, the possibility of not only homeopathy, but of anything and everything that you come into contact with, that you experience. Instead of living in a world so closed, and I feel like everybody is just so involved in themselves. Everybody has their AirPods in. Nobody's talking to each other out in the world anymore. We're all just like head down, doing things. We're ordering our groceries online. We're not going and seeing people in person. We're FaceTiming or Instagramming or whatever instead. In a world that is so closed and like becoming even more confined, can you do the opposite? And can you open to the potential, the possibility, the what ifs, and the newness of anything and everything that is swirling around you that could be something that can just come in and touch you and potentially change things, potentially help you see something differently, help you do something differently. Just the potential of it all is so exciting to me. I could talk about it all day long, but I hope that this was helpful for you. I hope that you learned something. If you have any requests for any specific homeopathy things, health things in general, anything like that, you can leave a comment on my Substack and let me know what you would like to hear me talk about next. I am on Substack, as you know. I am on YouTube, as you probably know, and I am on the podcast. But I'm also on Instagram here and there. And you can find all of the links for everything down below. And if you could leave a rating and review, maybe share the show with somebody who you think would benefit from hearing from this, whatever. I would greatly appreciate it. And I think that's it. Next week, we are deep diving into the world of mold because it will be my mold anniversary, 4 years since I experienced the mold. So we'll be talking all about that next week from the current perspective that I'm at, which is really great because it's ever changing and ever evolving, just like all of us, hopefully. And so with that, thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you next week.